There's a scene late in Spider-Man 2 where Harry Osborn finally receives his wish. Dying, and he spent a certain portion of the game face to face with his mortality. It's given him time to ponder what he wants, what he fears, and what eats away at him. And something is there to comfort him. Now, Harry has been dying for most of his life, actually, and the thing that offered to save him, the thing that has saved him, is asking in a voice that sounds an awful lot like his own whether he wants the pain to stop, all of it, forever. And the game, to its enormous credit, does not treat that as a rhetorical question. This is a review and more so analytical look at the story of Spider-Man 2. It came out almost 3 years ago. I know I'm late. I know, but I think I needed to be late because this game is doing something that I absolutely loved. Naturally, I wanted to talk about it now. This is a game about suffering. It's a game about what we're willing to trade to make all of it stop. And it's a game that asks us, what is the virtuous path to bear the suffering we will face in this life? Now, first off, quick housekeeping, because I'm not going to spend 20 minutes on a game that controls badly and pretend the writing carries it through. It doesn't have to. The gameplay is naturally freaking excellent. Web swinging is the best it's ever been in the franchise. The wingsuit traversal kind of sounded like a gimmick on paper, but it's really revelatory in practice. The wings let you cover distance, the webs let you do something and everything else, and the two systems hand off to each other so smoothly that within about an hour, you stop thinking about the controls entirely. Even without story, gameplay alone could carry this game, and quite honestly, these are some of the most fun games I've had in over 10 years. I love these games. Now, combat on top of that layers absolutely cleanly. Two playable Spider-Men complement each other. They have two distinct skill trees, gadgets that actually feel different from each other. The symbiote powers are the best the series has ever felt. Heavy, mean, with a real sense that you are doing something you probably shouldn't enjoy this much, which, let's hold that thought. Now, the complaint I saw most when this game came out was that it was short. Main story clocks in around 18 hours, and it took me about 25-26 hours to platinum it. Some people finished it in less. And in a market where Assassin's Creed Shadow is asking you for 140 hours of your one wild and precious life, 18 hours felt almost insulting to a lot of people. And I'm going to strongly push back on that. Not as a defense of the game, but as a defense of the idea that length is not the same thing as depth. There are AAA games right now that are 3 times as long as Spider-Man 2 and have approximately 1/3 the thematic or gameplay weight. You finish them and you've spent 80 hours and you can't tell me what they were about or what was it about that game that made it so fun to play. Spider-Man 2 is exactly as long as it needs to be to deliver its argument. And that's actually the first hint that something is going on here. Because the argument, to some degree, if not completely, is all about time, about how we spend our time, and about what we do when we know there isn't enough of it left. Now first, let's start with Kraven, because Kraven is the game's overture. He shows up first, he sets the thematic table, and then he exits stage left about halfway through, which threw a lot of people off. And I think it's the most interesting structural choice in the game. Kraven is dying. He has terminal cancer, and he has decided, and this is the part that matters, that he is going to die on his own terms. He has come to New York to be killed by someone worthy of killing him. That is the entire plot of his arc. He is shopping for an executioner. Now, the easy read here is to simply call Kraven some type of ancient esoteric pagan, right? This noble exit, this chosen death, the honor culture that you see in Stoics, the ancient Roman world, and so forth, falling on your swords and all of that tradition. And it would probably tidy nice for Kraven to fit into that, and to some degree, that is what he is. But the game also won't let me do that completely, and maybe that's on purpose, maybe it's not, because at a certain point in the game, you get a glimpse of Kraven's Eastern European roots. There's a scene where Spider-Man's in his office, and you see a lot of visual grammar around Kraven unmistakably coming from an Eastern Orthodox perspective. The iconography, the ritual gestures, the bearing of a man raised inside a tradition that has spent 2,000 years saying that suffering is not the enemy of meaning, that meekness is strength, and that the man on the cross is the model of what a strong man looks like. Kraven theoretically knows this tradition. He grew up inside of it potentially, and he kept the icons. He just threw out everything they pointed to, because what Kraven actually believes is something much older and much harder to defend. He believes in the strong devouring the weak. He believes the worthy life is the life that proves itself in violence. He believes, and this is the line in the sand, that the universe rewards the predator and forgets the lamb. That's a Darwinian honor code in liturgical clothing blended with that ancient pagan view I was talking about earlier. He's a man who heard the gospel potentially of suffering as virtue and decided he preferred a different gospel, survival of the fittest. Dressed up in the robes of a tradition he no longer belongs to, or maybe never fully belonged to. And this is, I think, a much more interesting villain than a pagan. A pagan is innocent. A pagan knows nothing else. Kraven potentially heard a different story and walked away from it. That's not innocence. That's the older, harder thing. The man who knows and chooses against, which is why the game is right to not let his death feel earned, in my opinion. And here's where the game starts to get interesting philosophically as well, because Kraven is wrong. Not wrong in some cartoony villain kind of way. The game treats him with real dignity and weight, but wrong in a way that has a name. I'm going to get to that. You got to bear with me here. We're going to talk a little bit about Greek philosophy to do that. So Aristotle has this argument that virtue is something you have. It's something you do. It's not a possession, but it's a practice. You become courageous by doing courageous things over and over until courage is no longer an effort. And the catch, the part that matters for Kraven, is that virtue requires time, requires life, a life made up of a multitude of small, tiny choices leading to a virtuous good. You can't be virtuous in a single moment, no matter how dramatic that moment is. A noble death doesn't redeem a life that wasn't aimed at the good, nor a death that was not aimed at the good either. Kraven is trying to compress a life of meaning into a singular act of dying. He's trying to buy back in one moment of theatrical violence the lifetime of formation he walked away from. And the game shows us repeatedly that this doesn't work. His hunters are slaves. His mercy is performed. The men he kills aren't worthy of him in his own framework. He is staging nobility, not practicing it. And when he finally does die, spoiler, he has his entire face torn off by Venom, the game gives him exactly the moment he wanted. And the moment is hollow. Just like that, he's gone. But that is the first false escape, the escape into a noble exit, the idea that you can outrun a meaningless life by choreographing what you believe to be a meaningful death, even if it's grounded in a framework of selfishness. Death not aimed at the good doesn't work. The game knows it doesn't work, and his character, I think, is written perfectly. The selfishness you see and hear throughout his expanded story, how he treats his family like ravenous wolves fighting for supremacy, how he disowns his own son for being incapable of committing violence against kin. For all of his staging as a strong, noble man, he is still ultimately weak and capable of outrunning what's coming for him and what's coming for all of us: death. And then we have the other end of the spectrum, the other false escape. And this one is harder because this one is dressed up, in my opinion, as love. Harry Osborn has been dying since he was a child. The game is very deliberate about this. He has a hereditary condition that has been killing him slowly his entire life, and his father has spent enormous resources keeping him alive. And the symbiote, the Venom symbiote, the Thing, was the first treatment that ever actually worked. It made him strong. It made the pain stop, and theoretically, it saved him. It also wasn't his. And here's where the game does something I think is genuinely philosophically remarkable. The symbiote isn't presented as a parasite in the simple sense. It's presented in the context of Harry's perception as a thing that loves Harry, loves him in a very particular way. It wants him to never feel pain again. It wants him to be powerful and protected and free from suffering. And to deliver on that promise, it has to do one small thing first. It has to remove the part of Harry that can suffer. Now, there's a concept in Thomistic philosophy, borrowed from Aristotle and deepened by Thomas Aquinas, that what makes you you isn't just your body or your feelings. Now, that's a part of it. But for Aquinas, it's the rational soul. For Aquinas, It's the immaterial organizing principle of the body, and it provides us with our capacity to know, to choose, and to love freely. And here's the thing about the rational soul in this framework. It's the part of you that can suffer, because it's also the part of you that can love. Suffering and love are the same faculty operating in different conditions. You can't have one without the other. To love something is to be capable of grief at its loss. Pursue the good is to be capable of pain when the good is denied. Venom's offer to Harry is this: I will take that part of you, the part that loves, the part that suffers, the part that chooses. I will take it, and in exchange, you will never hurt again. In many ways, this is a Faustian wish made manifest. And the horror of the back half of this game, and it is horror in the proper sense, is that Harry says yes. Not in one moment, slowly, by degrees. In a lot of ways, a mere reversal of Aristotle's argument for virtue being a simple habit. Harry, step by step, chooses the opposite path. Each time the pain comes back, he reaches for that thing that makes the pain stop. He desires it more, and each time he reaches, there's a little less of him to reach with. Rather than acknowledge the pain and suffering for what it is, something Aquinas would argue are passions that arise from love fundamentally, and use it as a redemptive moment. Harry embraces a lie that removes his identity overall. He's no longer Harry, he is Venom. And this is what evil can actually look like. Not just a monster, but people desire the good, and what matters is if they ultimately know what the good is. Harry did not say, I want to become a villain. His choices multiplied it, added up to what we would call a void of goodness. He was presented with something disguised as mercy, but a mercy with a price tag that you don't notice until the bill is due. A mercy that is ultimately devoid of goodness. So here's what the game is doing structurally, and I think once you see it, you can't unsee it. Kraven and Venom in many ways are the same villain. They are two answers to the same question, and the question is, what do you do when life hurts and you know it's going to end? Kraven says, end it on your own terms. Choose the moment, make a sculpture out of your death and call that meaning. Venom says, don't end it. Subtract the part of you that can hurt. Stay alive forever, but only as a thing that can no longer be wounded, because it can no longer love. Both of them are trying to get out of that human condition, one by the front door and one by the back. The game's argument, patient, careful, and never preachy, is that there is no door. There is no exit from suffering. The suffering is not a bug. Suffering is the thing that makes everything else mean what it means. Peter, in this framework, is the one who refuses both offers. He keeps the symbiote on for too long. That's his Venom moment, his flirtation with the painless self. He's tempted by the rage, by the absence of grief, by the version of himself that doesn't have to feel the death of his uncle or aunt anymore, and he gives it up voluntarily. He chooses to feel things again. He chooses to remain a creature capable of love, which means a creature capable of being hurt. And Miles Morales' story is one for one the same as well, especially when you account for the pain that Lee, or Mr. Negative, has caused his family as well. Vengeance of an almost Kraven-like manner is eating at Miles, and yet, for his character arc to truly progress, he has to let go and embrace the pain and suffering as something that ultimately shapes him for the better and makes him who he is. That's the move. That's the whole game in one gesture. The willingness to keep the wound open because the wound is where love lives. And that wound, that suffering, gives us meaning. To reject it ultimately rejects the path we're called for. When we reject it, even though it's a hard path to walk down, a narrow path, we reject a path, a story, that very well may be meant for us. If Peter rejects that path early on in his life, we don't have Spider-Man. And even though that path is hard and he stumbles off of it himself, and he's tempted by so many alternatives, the heroic and virtuous action is to reject that easy way out and continue onward upon that path, no matter how much suffering it may bring. And Harry and Peter are both not let off easy. Harry is faced with a choice. He hasn't completely lost himself, and he knows that the only way for the great evil he's embraced to be gone, he has to risk his own life. The very life he didn't want to lose in the first place, that brought upon the Venom mayhem initially. He has to rip off as many parts of that symbiote suit as he can and tells Peter to end it. He's willing to sacrifice himself out of love. Unlike Kraven, who chooses a meaningless death lacking aim at the good, Harry decides to take a chance at death, aimed at the good, a suffering moment that could have redemptive qualities to it. Harry finally chooses to embrace the suffering, even though what's about to happen will merely fast-track the pain and potential finality of his life from where he was before. I want to say this because I think it's important. We live in a culture that is, I think, increasingly bad at buffering. We have more tools to numb it than any generation in history. We have substances and screens and 1,000 small mercies that promise to make the part that hurts stop hurting. Some of those tools are good, some of them are necessary, but the underlying offer, the offer that you can have a human life without the part where it costs you something, that offer is everywhere, and it's a lie. And Spider-Man 2 knows it's a lie. That's what this game is. Underneath the web swinging, it's an 18-hour argument that the people in your life who hurt you by existing, by being mortal, by being sick, by being your friend who is making a choice you can't save them from, are the people who make your life mean what it means. You don't get to skip that part, and you shouldn't want to. Marvel's Spider-Man 2 is the best superhero game I have played this half of 2020. It is also one of the most quietly serious works of popular art I've encountered in this medium. Now, it is short, but it is tight, and in the genuine sense of an overused word perhaps, it is a meditation. I'm late to it, you might be late to it too, and that's fine. Some games you have to be ready for. Now, if you enjoyed this video, which I hope you did, please go ahead and like and subscribe because I do make a lot of different videos. I make kind of deeper dive analyses on stories and games like this one, and I also talk a lot about the gaming business overall from a true business perspective. Corporate strategy, the money under the surface, and the parts that you won't get from press releases. So yeah, subscribe if that sounds like your thing and let me know in the comments what's a game you came back to years later that hit different. I'm building a list because I'm always really late to a lot of games. So if there's anything you feel like you'd enjoy seeing me cover, let me know, and just let me know your thoughts about Spider-Man 2 or this video below. And as always, happy gaming.